Welcome, one and all, to Friday Art Talk. And today we have two wonderful guests. Once again, once a month, we bring you artists from the Bay Area featured in the East Bay Art Book 2020 version. We've got a 2021 version. That's why I'm stammering like this. So this work has grown over the last 2 years, though it was a tough period for all of us to live through. But today we bring you the beauty that came out of it. We bring you the resilience that came out of it. And it is my joy and honor to welcome Les Toil and Erin. Sorry, Erin, I might mispronounce your last name, so correct me, please, when you do get the mic. Crociani,
Yes.
Is that correct? Perfect.
Yes.
Great. Fantastic. All right. But before we get into the show, we're going to go through a couple of housekeeping rules. And of course, thank the guardians of the gates, the keepers of the key, those who keep us going through this time. And to begin with, we'd like to thank Flax Art and Design in Oakland for stepping up and offering our panelists gift cards to their shop. And this is such a beautiful gesture to come at a time when people were struggling so much, just to say, we'll step in and make sure that artists have what they need to create. So we'd like to really thank Flax Art and Design for the wonderful gesture of support. And also Alameda Municipal Power for stepping in and supporting our endeavors and making sure that we carry on doing what we're doing. We really appreciate your support for the arts, because as you know, without the arts, the pandemic and all other aspects of life would have been dull. So we very much appreciate that. More information on tonight's panelists is available at fridayartwalk.com. All the links can be provided to you in the chat, or if you just go to fridayartwalk.com, you will find the Friday Art Talks there. So the audience will be muted during the interview, and we'll have a Q&A section open at 8:15. Anyone can post questions in the Zoom chat window anytime during the show, and we'll attend to those as we go through. The show is being recorded and will be available within a week after airing. Right, that being said, I would like to welcome you all, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Even though things have opened up, we really appreciate the support. It is important that artists get an audience, because without the audience, the art itself is not alive. But then again, without the artists, the audience itself is not present. So that being said, thank you all for being important players in this very, very important aspect of life. All right, so to my two panelists, welcome Les and Erin.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I didn't ask. Great, thank you. My comment was gonna be, I'm sorry I didn't ask who would go first, but I guess I have a taker already. Who would go first? And then crickets.
I'll go first.
Okay, thank you so much, Les Toil. Right, so Les, firstly, tell us who are you? Where are you from?
I'm still trying to figure that out, but so far, well, first I wanted to say thank you very much for inviting me, Victor, and Jessica and Wesley, my two good friends. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I'm honored. My real name is Brian Clark, and I'm from Berkeley, California. I was born in 1961, and I always knew I wanted to be an artist. From the first day I picked up a crayon, and I always drew. I always loved art. I always loved illustration, especially, during the 60s when I was in my formative years. Artwork was all around. I mean, artwork was coming from Walt Disney. It was coming from Charles Schultz. It was coming from fine artists. It was coming from all the artists in Berkeley. Just walking down the street as a kid, there'd be radical art. Radical art against Nixon, against Spiral Agnew. But mainly it was, I just loved art. I loved illustration, comic books, kitschy art. I loved, as a little kid, I loved the big-eyed Keen art, specifically the animals, the Keen ripoffs, the kitty cats in the alleyway and everything. Anyway, I just absorbed all that as a little kid, and at a young age, I just started cartooning. I started just drawing everything and anything, and I even got in trouble in kindergarten because I used to draw naked people, and the kindergarten teacher called my mother in and said, "We have an issue here. Your son's drawing naked people." And my mom said, these aren't really naked people. These are just basically figures that don't have clothes on. There's no genitals there or anything. And my mother said, "You need to encourage my son to be artistic, to be creative." So anyway, I always had my mother's support. And I wanted to be a cartoonist. Then I wanted to be a comic book artist. And by the time I got to art school, CCAC, which is now CCA, I wanted to be a caricature artist, but I also wanted to be a commercial illustrator. And I was at CCAC for a year, and a woman who went to the Academy of Art in San Francisco, came to the CCAC campus, saw my work, and she said, "You need to get the hell out of here and come to the Art Academy, because that's a school for illustrators." And everybody that all the hot illustrators that are happening now, all around the world, mainly out of New York, they all lecture at the Academy of Art. Their art is all around and everything. She said, "This will foster your love for illustration and your love for the history of illustration," which she knew that I had. And anyway, so I went to the Academy of Art for 2 years and learned all that I wanted to learn in the illustration department. And I didn't go for any kind of a degree or anything. I was just too much of a young hothead, and I just wanted to get the hell out of school and become this world famous, filthy rich artist, like all my idols were, that were making this great living in illustration. And anyway, so that's kind of the history of me. I never did become rich and famous, but I've earned a living from my illustration ever since then. So
beautiful, Les. Thank you so much for the elaborate history. It's really nice to hear people's stories, to see where they came from, their path they took, but also their thought process in it.
Yes.
For you, the degree wasn't the point. The point was to learn and
yes.
to become rich. And I choose to disagree. I think you're rich. You're filthy rich in that you're giving the world so much. So thank you for that. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And Victor, the fact that I can pay my bills with my art. I mean, I'm barely paying my bills with my art, but the fact that I can do that, I literally feel like a millionaire.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'll get back to you on some thoughts, some questions I have about what you spoke about. So thanks again for that. Okay. And moving on to you, Erin. Tell us, who are you? Where are you from?
Okay, well, my name is Erin. I'm originally from Vallejo, California, and I moved to Oakland. I actually have a similar background as Les. I went to California College of the Arts and Crafts. I was there for the last year before they changed their name. I thought I was going to be an illustrator until I had a professor tell me, why do you draw like a painter? He's like, "You're not an illustrator." And he brought me paints, and that changed my life. And to be honest with you, that's the only thing I learned in art school. So there you go. And then I've lived in Oakland ever since then. And I paint as much as I can, create as much as I can, because that's what keeps me alive. And it's kind of funny that you brought up the story about getting in trouble for drawing naked people at school, because I did the same thing, except for I drew all the parts. And quite a few years later, my son did that, and I got called into the principal's office, and they're like, and it was a Catholic school in Alameda, and they were like, your son just drew, they're drawing naked people. And I'm like, well, do you know what I do for a living? And they're like, no. I go, well, I'm an artist. He sees it everywhere. That is not a taboo in our house. Like, I'm proud, of him for doing that. So
excellent.
I pretty much, I'm just a mom painter, just trying to survive. So that's pretty much who I am. Oh, and awesome. I like making my own paint. I forgot. I do like making my own paint and painting darker images. I'm known for my portrait work and kind of my more macabre style of art. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. It looks, I don't know if the people who scouted for the panelists deliberately chose people who went to CCA. I don't know if that's a coincidence, but anyway, it's a happy one, and we're glad to have you both. Fantastic stories, and there seems to be a parallel. There seems to be a happening in the education system that I would like to dig deeper into once we've been through all the questions, because it seems there was an intervention somewhere along the line or a clash. So I'd like you both to think about that. I've planted the seed. Okay, back to you, Les. What inspired the piece in the art book?
The painting, Lunar Synthesis. I decided to do a series of oil paintings. Whoops, am I still there?
Yes, you're there. We're just pulling up your image.
That's what happened. Okay, there it is. So at the time, I decided to do a series of oil paintings based upon a lot of my influences throughout my life, throughout my youth, throughout my life, and different genres of art. And I've always been a fan of vintage paperback cover art, as well as science fiction pulp magazine art. And I love the kitschiness of it. And so I decided to do something that might be like a modern day pulp magazine paperback cover. And again, I love kitschy. I love kind of extreme, kind of corny. And so that's where that came from. It's just basically, a science fiction movie poster from the 50s or 60s, if they allowed nudity. So that's what that is.
Awesome. And you did mention some of your influences. I see a lot of hints to surrealism, especially Salvador Dali. Would that be somebody who...
Yeah, big Salvador Dali fan. It's interesting that Erin mentioned about her instructor said, "You're what did she say? You're an illustrator.
You draw like a painter."
Yeah, exactly. I was the absolute opposite, and I knew it. I was trying to do fine art, but it would always come out looking like illustration. So I gave up on the whole fine art thing, and just pursued illustration. But artists like Kelly Freas, one of the premier science fiction magazine and paperback cover artists of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, who ended up doing a lot of Mad Magazine covers. I mean, that's kind of who I was channeling when I was doing this piece.
Awesome. All right. Before we move, will we go on to Erin's piece? Could you speak more about the significance of the female figure in the piece? if you don't mind.
Who, me?
Oh, me?
No, Les.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, well, you know, I've always been a fan. I've always been a fan of plus size women. I'm attracted to always been attracted to plus size women, and this series of oil paintings, a series that I later called Broad Strokes. It was just basically me painting the subject matter that I enjoyed painting and I enjoyed looking at, and the subject matter that inspired me. And that's kind of all I can say about the figures. And I had a friend pose for all the different figures, and what more can I say?
Got you. Thank you so much for sharing. And I must remind people, people in the audience, if you have any questions, please do post them in the chat, and we will attend to those as we round off the panel discussion. So please do put your questions in the chat. They will be attended to. Thanks once again, Les, for that beautiful work and sharing your story behind it all. Very inspiring. It's eye-opening to see your influences and also your take on your art. Thanks. All right, moving on to Erin. So what inspired the piece in the book?
So actually, my inspiration was from a movie called Frankenhooker. And I started with my son during quarantine watching old movies that I remember watching when I was a kid. So we were going through these different genres, and I like kind of B horror films. So we watched Frankenhooker because that was a memory that I had, that my dad used to sell TVs and stereos, and he won a laser disc. And back in the 90s, I think it was the early 90s, the laser disc came out. And the first movie he bought, we went to Tower Records, was Frankenhooker. And I became obsessed. And I forgot about it for a long time until quarantine. And we were trying to figure out like different movies that we haven't seen, you know, what we can do as a family. So we sat as a family, brought out the popcorn and watched this movie. And it was kind of funny because my son's 15 and he was like, what the hell are we watching? This is so horrible. I can't believe someone made this movie. But so it's just, you know, it's just the art is based on that. And it's kind of funny that you're showing this piece. I know it was in the book, but I normally don't draw or do pastels, and this is a pastel. So during the beginning of the quarantine, I just started doing like all these giant pastels of different movies. My family and I started rewatching again. So that's kind of what this is based around. Okay,
so can you say something more about the figure?
Yes, so
yeah,
that's Elizabeth. So basically the storyline is she was this kind of heavy-set girl, and she was madly in love with this guy named Jeffrey. Jeffrey was a mad scientist. He made this lawnmower for her dad. The lawnmower got out of control and ran her over, and he wanted to bring her back. So he went to, it was based in Jersey. So he went to Jersey and got all these hookers, got them, he picked out like each body part, and what he did was he was trying to have like a big party. He made super crack, and these women started exploding. And he thought that if he put together the perfect woman and bring back his Elizabeth, that they would be in love. She would be happy because she would be happy with her body, and you know, everything will go back to normal. And what ended up happening is that she took on the persona of all these different hookers and became the ultimate Frankenhooker. And the end of the story was he kind of electrified her again, and she became her old self, and she was very angry that he did that to her, that she liked who she was, and she thought he loved her the way she was. And obviously he didn't, you know, he thought he did, and she changed him into a Frankenhooker. So
wow.
Yeah.
Pretty intense. What a story to tell. So layered in terms of control, a desire, and um, need for perfection. So I would love to go back to that a bit later on.
Okay.
Liz, you had your hand up?
I just wanted to say, Erin, that's a fantastic piece. I've been a fan of that piece the moment I laid eyes on it, and it does Frankenhooker justice. It's a great piece.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Wow.
love it.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate
Okay.
that.
Thanks for that wonderful comment, Liz. Yeah, it is a powerful piece indeed. And once again, I see the subject, there are women in both the art pieces. And I would just like us to really dig deeper into why we're drawn to the female figure in terms of illustration. A lot of artists have done so, some from a sexual perspective, some from a power perspective, some from a maternal perspective. But it looks like the female figure is really predominant in the arts. And in this case, it's exhibiting a kind of power I would like you both to talk about as soon as we're done with the quarantine question, which is coming up now. So the quarantine was obviously a hard time for me personally. I won't speak for everybody, but I would love to hear how that impacted you, having the world turned upside down as it was, and just a sense of not knowing what's to come, and seeing all the despair in the society. Les, we'll start with you. How did you navigate the quarantine? And yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to say I don't have the greatest answer because I mean, aesthetically, artistically, it didn't really affect me either good or bad. Matter of fact, I thought I was going to be a lot more productive and a lot more inspired. I thought I'd do more radical art, based upon this, this world crisis. But pathetically, I just ended up, I really thought I'd just devote, like, hey, this is a great time to devote my time since I'm not able to go out and see friends. I thought I'd devote all my time to art, but instead I just concentrated on the art assignments I was given, thank God, because a lot of people didn't have money to hire illustrators. But fortunately, I was able to get by, and I was able to concentrate on the assignments that I was given. I was able to put all the bells and whistles into the illustration jobs I had. And when people would hire me to do oil paintings, like this one young gentleman who he opened a barber shop in Canada, and it had a punk theme, his barber shop, and he wanted me to do this giant oil painting of this idea that he had in mind of an older punk barber giving this little kid a mohawk. So because of the coronavirus, I was able to just put a lot of time into it since I wasn't going out and hanging out with friends or anything. And that was the thing. I was able to put all the bells and whistles in my art, but sadly, I thought I was going to be inspired to do a lot more art and to do more radical art, and sadly, that never happened.
Okay, I would just like to jump back into that. So let's say you didn't have the art.
If I didn't have the art,
yeah.
If I didn't have the art, I would have definitely have done another series of oil paintings, and that series definitely would have been a lot more radical. Obviously, I would have been inspired by the president who was in office at the time. And actually, that's something I should have mentioned. I did do a lot of art, a lot of anti-Trump art at that time, and my own stuff, as well as stuff that people hired me to do. And so if I were to do my own work, if I didn't have any art assignments, it would have definitely have been very political, my oil paintings.
Got you. Beautiful answer. I just want to conclude that the reason I dug into that was to show that when you have something you love to do and that occupies your time, everything else kind of like fades into the background, becomes blurred. And so when I asked you the question that if you didn't have the art, you actually decided to redefine what art is. Is it an assignment or is it my own personal art? So it was interesting to see that you cannot be separated from your art. Beautiful. Yeah. I hope. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Les. Sorry about that. Okay, on to you, Erin. I'm thinking about the impacts of the quarantine. How did that impact you and your work?
Well, I kind of had a little bit of a similar experience as Les. To be honest with you, the first 2 weeks, I was drawing and doing all this stuff, and I used it as like kind of a fire under my ass. And then I just, I'm a natural. The way I live my life, I'm always surviving. And now, how do I put this? I feel like a lot of people are in survival mode right now. And for me, I'm tired of being in that mode. I think the virus and this whole quarantine thing had made me realize that I've always lived my life in the survival mode and I don't want to do it anymore. So with that being said, even though I'm still making art, it completely blocked me. I'm like a little bit having an artist block. Like I have all the tools, I know I see it in my head, and I just cannot physically do it right now. I think it just kind of gave me a different way of relooking at my life and who I am, and not wanting to have to constantly wake up every morning and survive for the next day. So it's kind of interesting. I'm still like, creating and making art, and I want to say, and it's not to downplay it, but kind of mindless art, just something that I just do that I don't put feelings in, because most of my art, I put every emotion that I have that day, I put it into my art. So right now it's just, I'm blocked, to be honest with you. It's kind of taken that away from me a little bit.
Wow. Yes, thanks for sharing that. It's interesting to see that artists are human as well, and we go through these challenges also. But I would like to challenge you that artists never create anything mindless. I think we should sell ourselves there, and that's where the intrinsic value kicks in, because whatever we produce, someone appreciates. That's my take on it. And I would just like to thank you for carrying on creating that work, because the eyes that will see it will be blessed by it. Thank you, Les. And I hope you break out of it. Just to share a tip, I had a block 2 years back and I went to a chiropractor. Scary experience, but it really unblocked me in a lot of ways. And when I asked, so I had to go back and ask what happened. And they told me about the whole flow of energy in the body and how cracking up my realigning it helps that flow. So just a tip. All right. Les, I'd like to go back to thoughts on the thwarting of creativity. You drew naked people when you were in school. And somebody had the gall to tell you not to do that. What are your thoughts on how we destroy creativity, for a lack of a more harsher term, in kids especially, and in adults as well? So this experience that you had about being told not to draw naked people, how did that impact you, and how did that shape the trajectory of your journey?
To be honest, I don't remember that incident. My mother always told that story, but I'm sure it influenced me in that I was more cautious of what I drew. As I went into the first and second grade, I started to draw, cartoon characters that I would see on TV, and I'm sure, you know, that dressing down that I had, even though my mother continued to inspire me and probably told me, I know she told me, you know, ignore what that teacher said, draw what's in your heart and mind. But I'm sure that it probably inhibited me a bit from that point on. But, you know, it's unfortunate because I know, you know, I'm not going to use the term PC, but we're living in a society where everybody's, you know, really concerned about not wanting to offend anybody, step on anybody's whatever. You know, we're hyper conscious of that, and so you know, that probably does affect one's creativity. I mean, there were artists out there back when I was a kid who had no inhibitions about what to draw. I mean, Robert Crumb, I mean, he drew some crazy stuff. A number of artists that I admired did stuff that was far from politically correct, but they were expressing who they were. And you know, there weren't like leagues of people telling them you're offensive and that's wrong. I mean, people probably knew that their work was offensive, but they still encouraged them to do what they wanted to do. But now, you know, especially with social media, you know, it's, you know, it can inhibit an artist's creativity to know you have to stay within these parameters with your subject matter and your art. So.
Thank you, Les. Yeah, that I feel that's a very important topic of discussion, whether it inhibits artists or liberates society. You know, the question is in the air. So moving on to you, Erin, same question. So here you are, you're an artist, you're familiar with naked bodies. Your son gets to draw naked bodies at school. How did you feel about that as a mother, you know, having to be called into school? And also the fact that the teacher didn't know who the mother was?
At first I was a little upset, mad the way that it was handled, being called in. And then, you know, I kind of thought it was funny, but they, you know, because it was a Catholic school, they were still kind of like, but it's wrong. And I'm like, it's not wrong. I go, you know, you're right. He shouldn't be doing it at school at this moment. You know, he was at the time in first grade, but I'm not going to tell him it's wrong to draw a naked woman or a naked man or anything at that, you know, fact. You know, my parents were not, they did not support my art. In fact, they used to rip it up. My brother would run in my room, look and see what I was drawing and go tell my parents, Erin's drawing double shit again or whatever, and they would rip it up. So you know, even though my son really is not into art these days, I wanted to be as super supportive. I wanted to give him what I didn't have growing up. And, you know, it's just a little frustrating when people tell children or, you know, you get in trouble for drawing a certain thing. It's just, yeah, it's a little frustrating. And I see it from both perspectives, you know, being in school and, you know, and that kind of thing. But yeah, it was frustrating. And, you know, and that thing, you know, end of the day, it's a little funny, you know, there's a nun telling you your son can't draw naked people. It's like, well, why can't he? You know, like, why not, you know? So.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of points to ponder there. I won't add anything to that. That was beautifully articulated from both of you. And I'd like to thank you so much for that. It is 8:04. That means we've got, how much time do we have, Wes and Jess? We finish at 8:30. Okay.
20 minutes.
Oh, great, fantastic. So at this point, I would like to bring it back to the panelists themselves. If you've got any comments or any more thoughts about this discussion or anything else you want to add to it, this is your time.
I did want to say in regards to drawing naked bodies as a kid, and kids nowadays, them addressing the subject of sexuality in art. It'd be nice if young people use their artistic skills to address abuse, sexual abuse, things like that. Maybe using nudity or whatever as a means of confronting violence in our society, and using it in a radical way, in a more positive way, in a strong, direct, aggressive way, but in a positive way that addresses the ills of our society.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. Thank you so much for that, Les. Yeah, it's sobering. I'm finding myself getting a little emotional about it because not just because I'm an artist, but because art is so powerful. It comes from within and without. Those kids don't get it from nowhere. It has to come from somewhere. So thanks for that contribution. And I say thank you because firstly, it's beautiful, but secondly, the young people who watch this will get some sense of direction about, that self-expression and the power it has.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Les.
My pleasure.
Erin, any further contributions?
Yeah, actually, I want to kind of add on that, me being a product of having like a broken childhood, art really saved my life. I've gone through many years of, therapy and just dealing with, my issues. And if I didn't have art, I honestly can say I wouldn't be here today. And art is extremely powerful. It saves lives. It really does. And I just wanted to add that because I think a lot of people don't get that. They don't see, they just like, oh yeah, it's a painting or it's this, it's that. They don't really see where it comes from and the feeling and the emotion and, everything that goes with that.
Wow. Wow. So can people reach out to you to have a bit more of that discussion if they feel they need some guidance along that?
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Whew. Enough said. Yeah, this has been heavier than I thought. Beautifully heavy. So full of substance. And I want to thank you both for being so honest and upfront about it and sharing such personal and deep stories, because this is what it's about. You've created an amazing space where it's okay to create what you feel you should create. And it's okay to be powerful, not be afraid of it. But also it's a point to consider that teachers should know who the parents of their children, who they teach are. Because if you're the teacher of a student whose parent is an artist and you don't know that, what does that mean? How do you instruct them? And then moving on to Les' point, use art as a tool. Express yourself. Thank you so much for that. And with that, we open up the chat. I did see that Cheryl had her hand up. So Cheryl, would you like to go ahead?
I was just pondering the whole question of why we're so scared of nudity. We don't get the same reaction. We see a kid drawing a photo of people fighting or violence or whatever, but nudity just raises panic and fear. And I just wonder, it was just an interesting phenomena to explore. Why is it? It's nature. And there's sexuality in all of nature, whether it's flowers or animals or whatever you see. Biology is and what is it about the human body that is so scary?
Wow, beautifully put.
Both of these artists are drawing nudity, and they've had to confront that fear of their work, and I'm wondering what their thoughts are about that.
Can I answer that, Victor? Well, first I wanted to say something to Wes and Jessica. You guys know me on Facebook. I just wanted to tell you guys I'm so engrossed in this conversation that there was a giant spider on this piece of paper here, and I saw it and I flicked it off, and I didn't freak out, and I kept listening. And you guys know me. You guys know that, I mean, I'm a lunatic around spiders. Anyway, so this is a really engrossing conversation. But so I wanted to say, you know, as far as fine art goes, I mean, I was raised on illustration. I was also raised on fine art, such as Maxfield Parrish, and especially Renaissance art. And the main subject matter and the concentration was on nudity, nude bodies, the beauty of the male and female form, and Maxfield Parrish as well. And it's really heartbreaking that, you know, when I attempted to post a painting of mine on social media, on Facebook, of a nude woman, or nowadays, even a woman who's scantily dressed in a bikini or a bathing suit, I get a warning or I get kicked off of social media for doing that. And there's no committee, you know, there's only bots, there's only whatever, that are saying, we detect nudity, you're banned, as opposed to saying that it's artwork. And subconsciously and maybe consciously, young people are saying nudity is a bad thing. Nudity is a wrong thing. It's an offensive thing, no matter if it's presented in an art form or any kind of form. It's obviously a bad thing, and I shouldn't delve into that in my art, regardless of the fact that throughout history, the human figure was, you know, probably was the most prominent subject matter of art, and that's a shame.
Thank you, Les. Just an update, Jessica posted in the chat that might have changed now, so they now allow fine art nudity. So hopefully that's the case.
Okay,
and great. I'm just reading through the comments. Erin, you can take it away also. I think you had something to add to that about the fear of nudity.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand the whole way of society looking at nudity, because that's where it's such a natural thing, and that's where we, learned how to draw. We, like in the Renaissance, Les is right. Everyone was depicting nude people, and I don't know where we went wrong as a society, thinking that it's bad or taboo, or I don't get it. And it's a little frustrating, and that we have that stigma still. I mean, we're in 2021, like, come on.
We lost you there. Les, you might have to rewind those thoughts. We lost you for about 15 seconds. We lost how you had come on.
You lost me?
No, we lost Erin.
Oh, Erin.
I'm sorry.
We lost
I heard everything she said.
Oh, yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
So I'm the only one.
Yeah,
okay.
Maybe.
All right, thanks a lot for that, Les and Erin. Are there any more comments? Yes, Howard, you have something, you have a comment. I love this moment when we have to wait for people's own.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, we talked about issues around nudity and so on. Let's not forget that the US is a very puritanical society. We were founded by uptight Puritan religious types, and that trend continues. Our prisons are unlike those in more compassionate societies. We take revenge and punish people for their sins. And I think that carries over into art and just about everything else we do as a culture and as a society. And if you think I'm wrong, please let me know.
You're only
Beautifully
wrong
put.
10 years.
Thank you, Howard. By the way, if you haven't watched Howard's art talk, it's fantastic. He's got the most amazing captures of from the 60s that he shared with us in his art talk. And also Sarah and Dave have got wonderful, wonderful pieces in the art book, and they have an art talk. So does Cheryl, and so does Yolanda. So please, if you have time, please do look through the art talks. They totally fantastic. All right, David, we're on to you. I love this unmute moment.
Oh, hello. For Les, I wondered, as far as what kind of comic books did you enjoy? I'm a big fan of them myself. And I wondered, as far as non-politically correct comic type artists go, what do you think of S. Clay Wilson? And for Erin, I wondered if you had ever seen the wonderfully funny, bad grade B horror movie 976 Evil.
Okay.
Can I? You know what? I haven't, but I'm gonna write it down right now.
Thank you for your question, David, and we'll move on to Liz.
That was David? David, do you have a couple hours? Well, I mean, I'll, here's the timeline. I started off with Charlie Brown, paperbacks, Charlie Brown, BC, Wizard of Id, Little Abner, those little paperbacks. Then I moved on to, funny animal comic books, my God, Fox, I forgot the name of the comics, but then I moved on to superheroes like Batman, Superman. I got tired of them real fast, and I moved on immediately to Marvel Comics and stayed with Marvel for a big chunk of my childhood because I was obsessed with Jack Kirby. And I just did everything I could to draw like Jack Kirby, traced over Jack Kirby. And I mean, even to this day, I think subconsciously I try to channel Jack Kirby's art, even when I try to do fine art. And as well as the other artists at that time, comic book artists of the 60s, as well as the comic book artists before my time from the 50s, specifically EC Comics, artists like Wally Wood, Will Elder, Jack Davis, Harvey Kurtzman. Those dudes knew how to draw. I mean, they knew how to draw, and again, they were my inspiration. I mean, and I applied what I learned from those artists to my illustration work and even my oil paintings. But then I went to Moe's Books with my mother at about age of like maybe 9 or 10. And I saw my very first Zap comic. And when my mother was elsewhere in the store, Moe's Books, I opened up that Zap Comics and I saw R. Crumb's art. It was Zap Comics #0. And I was in love. I mean, it was love at first sight. And I just became obsessed with him. And when my mother went to Moe's Books again, I went with her maybe a week or so later. I kept telling her how much I loved this guy's work here. Again, I was like 10 years old, maybe 9. And of course, you know, there's like a lot of genitals in his work, a lot of crazy shit in his work, a lot of insane stuff, X-rated stuff. And I showed my mother, I said, I really like this cartoonist work. It's funny. He's got an old-fashioned style. And she ended up buying me Zap Comics #0 and Zap Comics #1, you know, that said adults only. And I think she may have eventually gotten me Zap Comics #2 two or three that introduced S. Clay Wilson, maybe Kim Deitch, the great Robert Williams, who to this day I'm obsessed with. Huge influence, Robert Williams. His pen and ink work was just astounding to me. But yeah, again, I gotta applaud my mother, rest in peace, for being so open-minded to look beyond the penises, vaginas, the daggers in the hearts, the crazy stuff, for me to appreciate the art of these artists and the impact they had. And, you know, their art didn't lead me to be a psycho killer. Maybe I'm psychotic, I don't know, but I'm not out there killing anybody. Anyway, so that's my history of comics, David.
Thanks so much, Les. Really appreciate that. This has become like a really great resource for those not too familiar with the comic book world, you know, and the illustration world. So thanks so much for that. And we'll move on to Phil. You have your hand up.
Yeah, this is for Erin, because I'm curious. When you watch bad movies and you do illustration or you do art from them, I wonder whether it's because you find, let's say, good movies as being too manicure, and that bad movies, in some sense, the rawness of it is more unhidden within it, and so therefore there's actually more truth in a funny sense to it. Is that the reason why you choose the quote bad stuff?
I think my love for like the B horror movies is that you can tell genuinely that someone made it, you know, like like more of a handmade quality to them, with the, like, I guess more of like the rawness and stuff, and it keeps me entertained. I like to laugh. I like to say, oh my God, can you tell that was ketchup or whatever they use, the materials. My mom was a huge sci-fi fan, and she constantly watched like all these shows, and I absolutely did not like them, and she hated horror, and I kind of gravitated towards the horror genre, and I found comfort in it. And just, I think because I was so young watching them, kind of was more, I don't want to say childlike, but not as scary, more funny. And I think that's it just kind of brings me back to a happy place in a sense. And that's what inspires me, I think, from them, is just having that one good memory of when I was a child, you know, and seeing this kind of handmade, you know, raw movie, versus now when it's like, oh my God, that really could happen, you know?
Beautiful. Thank you for your question, Phil. You still have your hand up. Do you have another question? Okay, you're muted. But thank you for your question. We appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a great discussion. While we wait for questions, we'll take another intermission. And I would like to announce that on October 16th, we have an outdoor film shorts with live music at Studio 23. So that's October 16th, outdoor film shorts. And you can also find this information on FridayArtWalk.com, by the way. And so let me read that again. October 16th, outdoor film shorts with live music at Studio 23 and 3 Dots Studio, right? Sarah? Okay. Annual Memento Mori. You can also get details at Studio 23 Gallery. So these two galleries, if you're not familiar, they're next door to each other. So if you go to Studio 23, please visit 3 Dot also. And Sarah, Sarah and Dave, who run 3 Dots Gallery, also have an Art in Nature meet up. And this is happening on August the 14th. It says August the 14th here. I think
That's a
we're past
mistake.
August.
It's tomorrow, the 11th.
Got you. Okay, so that's Saturday, the 11th of September. And I hear that it's really great. I'm being honest about it. I haven't been yet, but I intend to go. So if you do want to share community with artists in nature, this Art in Nature meetup is fantastic. And you can get it on, you can find it on meetup.com if you look for Alameda Artists. So Alameda Artists on meetup.com, or just get in touch with any of us on the panel. Jess and Wes, Sarah and Dave, Cheryl and Howard know about it. Yolanda knows about it. So this community knows about it. So do get in touch about that. So catch this show, past shows and other shows. Learn more at FridayArtWalk.com. Once again, thanks to our sponsors, Flax Art and Design. We really appreciate your contribution to this panel. And also Alameda Municipal Power. We really do appreciate this, and we are making history, mark my words. 10 years later, this will be a go-to. So with that being said, I would like to open it up again. If there are any artists, like I mentioned, maybe Sarah, you want to say more about the Art in Nature? And if you have announcements about upcoming art projects, anything you want to share with the community, please go ahead. This is your time.
I'll just the Art in Nature it's very laid back. So we pretty much just get outside. It was spawned because of COVID. So having events outside and being able to still connect with other creatives and create and socialize at the same time. So it's at Trecheño Park in Alameda on the corner of San Jose and Park Avenue. It's pretty easy to find. It's right off Park Street. And then the Memento Mori show. Memento Mori is remember death. And some people look at that as really morbid, but it's actually remembering death helps you to remember that you're alive. So to live life to the fullest. But I do this show every year in the fall, because it aligns with like Dia de los Muertos and Halloween and things like that. So we'll be featuring some artists that have kind of a darker theme in their art. Erin, your art would have been perfect there for the show. Anyway, that's it. But also, one of the things I brought up earlier when you guys were talking was, I think it's interesting that one thing that is kind of a common thread between what you guys, your art and what you guys talked about today is focusing on the female form, and that the female form is where it's told that the female form needs to look a certain way. So I grew up with a very bad body image. I've always had a struggle with my body image, and getting in, like you, Erin, getting into art has helped me with that. And it helps me feel empowered to show, like, a lot of my art I do a lot of little girls with like crazy, like wild animals. And to me, that's showing women's connection with nature, but also young girls' power, and that they're not an object to be controlled and told what to do and told how to look, but they're part of the natural world, and women shouldn't be confined to a certain box that society seems to want to put us in. And Les and Erin, both of your pieces, Erin, because yours is a woman who gets pissed because her boyfriend changes her into a way that he thinks she should look, when she, you know, she's like, I thought you liked me because of who I am, and less because you're very body positive in your works. So I really liked that connection between your two pieces and your art in general.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very beautifully summarized, Sarah. I love that. Nothing more to add to that. I think, well, I just ate my own words there. I think the whole idea of image is being confronted head on here. The whole idea of control and manipulation is being confronted head on. And thank you for giving us the power to be ourselves and to love what we love and to be unafraid to express ourselves. So to the 10-year-old in you, Les, thank you for pursuing your dream and vocalizing what you admire and want. And Erin, thank you for standing beside that boy and supporting him.
Thank you.
There's nothing more powerful than having somebody by your side to say, it's okay, it's fine. And Sarah, once again, thanks for rounding it up so powerfully, because we need to hear that. I became conscious of women when I got 2 girls. I grew up in a family of boys, and it's real. The struggle is real. So that being said, it's been a beautiful Friday, people, and I can't thank Erin and Les enough for such a candid, powerful discussion. And I would like to thank all those in the audience for making it come alive and giving it so much more substance. And we will see you next month. With that being said, please carry on doing what you're doing and keep inspiring, keep motivating. And remember, artists are the gems that will always be polished a little too late sometimes, but gems nonetheless.
I hate to add something after that beautiful sentiment, but I have to, before we sign off officially and stop recording, if Les or Erin have any shows that they want to announce and let people know about, now's a good time to do it.
Yeah, I actually have a show right now at Alameda Island Brewery. It's up until, I think, October. So you should go get a beer. They have amazing beer, and check out some of my drawings. Thanks.
I don't have a show at the moment, which is unfortunate, because I bought myself an expensive printer to sell prints of my art at shows, which hopefully will happen in the near future. But I would love for people to check out my my portraits, my Toil Girl portraits, to kind of expound on what Sarah said about body positivity. I started doing Toil Girls because I love pinup art, and I loved the female body, specifically the plus size female body. And I in life I noticed there were no plus size pinup queens, calendar queens, or anything like that. And if there were, they were being made fun of, showing them eating great amounts of food, and basically, the photographer made them look unattractive. So anyway, I started doing, pinup art of clients, anybody who wanted a portrait of themselves in a pinup style. And I kind of targeted a more, basically any size, but I kind of targeted plus size women. And I did that because I enjoyed the subject matter. And then I started to get, responses from clients and from people, women in general, who said that my depiction of women and my embracing plus size women as a subject matter kind of made them feel better about themselves and kind of brought them out of their shell. And it, I didn't realize my art could do that. And anyway, it just made me feel good as an artist that I was doing something that had some kind of importance, some kind of positive importance. So anyway, I would love for people to check out my Toil Girls at toilgirls.com, TOILGIRLS.com. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you so much, Les. Whoa, yeah, that last statement gave me chills. Yeah, to empower somebody with your work, I mean, that's divine. All right, geez, I'm all emotional now. Once again, thank you. And I do believe there's a show in Hayward. So if the artist wants to share about that, I will leave that up to her. But with that being said, I'm done for the night, and we'll see you next month on the second Friday. Please invite family and friends. This is an awesome space to be in. Get your voice heard. Come sit in and hear amazing artists speak about their work. And there's a treasure trove on FridayArtWalk.com where you can see a lot of other art panels going through. Share with a friend, share with family. This is the treasure we have in the East Bay, and now sharing with the world.